Hello, in this video I want to talk about object destructuring and the spread operator, which are really useful in modern JavaScript for managing arrays and objects and just working with them really cleanly when it comes to functions and just really any code that you're going to write. So let's say you have a const array, and this array has 1, 2, 4, 6, and 8 as the values. So destructuring will allow you to assign variable names within a particular scope. So you could do this on the same scope as the array, or you could do it inside of a function that receives this array. So like let's say you just want to destructure this right here. So you want to assign the this value to be called ONE1, this one to be TWO, this one to be FOUR, this one to be SIX, and this one to be 8. So you could do something like const ONE TWO and FOUR 6 8 equals array, and then you could console.log those values and you'll get each of them as variables. So for example, you could reorder these into a different ordering and print them out that way. And why this is useful is that you're essentially able to assign these names all in one line, as opposed to having to painstakingly go, const 1 equals array at 0, const 2 equals array at 1, etc., etc. You can simply do this all in one place. And so this is great for when you know the exact format of an array that is going to be produced somewhere. So for example, you might say that this is logically a tuple or a tuple, which is like an array where it has a fixed length and it's not really expected that you would add on to the values. It's just kind of like there's always going to be this first thing and there's always going to be this second thing. So we can use an array to represent this, but logically we're going to consider that this is a tuple. Now, every time that somebody receives this tuple, we can just tell them in the API documentation that they should always expect this first thing is going to be this first thing, and the second is going to be the second. It's always going to come in that order. It's never going to come in a different order. So it's really useful that we can then have those as variables in here and use them. And the nice thing is that because it's a tuple or an array, we are just emphasizing the fact that this is second out of 2, this is first out of 2. It doesn't really matter what the name that we give it is. So we can give this any sort of name we like, and it always is going to be able to pull out that second value because it's by position. So this is going to differ from when we do the same thing with an object, because objects have names. So let's say we have an object called O, and O has some keys, like A is going to be 1 and B is going to be 2, for example. So if we want to destructure this object, we can say const AB equals O, and then we could console.log B, for example, or A and B. And then the nice thing about this is it saves us just as before, it saves us from having to go const B equals O dot B and const A equals O dot A and doing that for everything. We can just destructure. And the other nice thing about this is, we could do, if we want to just pick out, for example, B, we could just pick it out like that. But it allows us to hot swap what things we want to pick out of an object. Like for example, we just want to pick B. Okay, fine. We don't care about anything else. And then you could say that you don't like the name B. So as before, say you want to change this to B2 as the name, that's not going to work because objects are indexed by the names of the keys. So you can't just change this name and expect it to work, because order means nothing in an object. It's not like it's A and then B. It's indexed by key. So you'll have to actually say something like this, where you say B colon, I want to give it a new name called B2. So this is a little different where it's key equals value. Here this is variable name we want to make a const, and new name we want to give it is going to be B2. So then we can just easily pull out B as B2 and then console.log B2. So that gives us the advantage that if the name B, for example, if we had const B is 6, it gives us the advantage that we don't have to use the name B, which is already obviously used in this scope. So we could reassign it to a different name in that case. Now, you've seen how we can just select out the certain ones that we want when we have an object by just picking the keys that we like. But what if we have this tuple situation and we want to just pick out the second thing, for example? Well, what you could do is just say nothing for that first one, and you're not going to get the first thing, but you have the second thing, and that's completely fine because you have a comma here. So you say there's going to be something, I don't care what it is. You could put this as an underscore, which is a common thing for a variable I don't intend to use, but you don't really need to do that. And you could do the same for something at the end. So let's say you had first thing, second thing, third thing, and you know it's always going to come in this format. If you want to get the second thing, you could do something like this, where you say, I don't care about the name of this last thing, I just want to get the middle thing. So I can do underscore here, or dunder here, double underscore, dunder and underscore as the names of these because I don't care about them, and then I can get the name of I can get the value of the second thing. Or if I were to swap these, since the order is what matters here, if I put the underscore here, then I would actually be getting the third thing instead of the second thing. So important difference is that when you can't just randomly leave things out because order matters here. But one advantage that you can do with this is you can use the spread operator to your advantage. So spread is going to have multiple uses in JavaScript, but one of them is going to be to just say, let's look at this one, and then I want to get the rest of the stuff. So let's say you have the first thing, the second thing, the third thing, and the fourth thing. And you want to just say, okay, right now I want to pull out the first thing and I want to give it the name A. But then I just want everything else to be called ... rest, the rest of the stuff. Or I could call this anything, like tuple rest. And now I can get the first thing out because it's the position of the first, and then all the rest of those objects are going to be in this rest variable. So the ... says I want to continue picking up multiple values that are inside of this array, and I want to package them up into another array called tuple rest. So then I can console.log tuple rest, and that now is the rest of the stuff. You could also do like tuple rest and then last, something like this, and you'll get an error. So the rest element is going to have to be the last element. You also couldn't do it as the first element, like ... tuple rest and then last, like that. And if you wanted to get more complicated with a slice that you were taking out of something, you could use a different array method rather than this convenience feature. For example, you could just, so for this, we'll get the first thing, hopefully. You could use something else, like if you had that whole tuple and you wanted to get the middle two, you could say like get the middle two. Then you could say console.log tuple.slice13. So this says from the first element to the from the first index 1 to the third index 0, 1, 2, 3, and that excludes 3. It's inclusive of 1 but exclusive of 3, so that gives you the second 2. And that would be a way to get the middle 2 that wouldn't involve the spread operator. Now, The rest spread will also work with object. So let's say you have const O is A1, B2, C3. You could create an object that is the rest of what it's in the object after you've pulled out any keys you're interested in. So we could combine topics and say we want to pull out A, rename A to B67, AB67, and then get the rest as others. We could call that whatever we want, and then we can console log AB67 and others, and it's going to give us 1 as the value of A in AB67, and it's going to give us the others as an object where this has been removed. So that's a really nice convenience feature. You can kind of slim down an object key by key, or pass on the remainder of the keys and values as you go. Another convenient place where you might use the spread operator would be in the argument of a function. So let's look at console.log. Just type that and then hover over log. You'll see that data is ... data array of any. So this is where you might want a function to take an unknown number of arguments and then do something with those dynamically, even if we don't know the number of arguments. So like, let's say we don't know the number of arguments. Like, we want to have want to be able to take n objects, or like n numbers, and sum them up. So that would be a simple task. But like, let's say you say function add a and b, and then you return a plus b. Okay, so I can easily call console.log 1 and 2. That's easy. It gets 3. Now if I try to add a 7 to that, I'm still going to get 3 because I'm taking in a, b, but I'm not taking in a c. So then I take a c and then maybe add it there, and now it gets added. But I have to actually specify exactly what I want to happen there. So I could do something like wrap this in an array. So I could say numbers, and you could pass in those numbers as an array. And then I'll essentially just take those numbers, and you could call reduce. Don't worry about what this does, but this sums up all the numbers using a higher order function on the array, and it's going to return the sum of all those. So I can just keep adding, I can keep adding these and keep adding these and do whatever sort of sum I like. But what if I don't want to have to pass in an array? I just want to be able to pass in as many parameters as I like. So this is where spread can come in. If we drop the array, if we drop those brackets, spread essentially means this. It means take the brackets off of something. Or in this case, it's kind of counterintuitive because it means throw the brackets onto something. So it usually means take the brackets off, but in this case, it kind of means put the brackets back on. So essentially, if we pass in these numbers as arguments, this is not an array. This is just a list of arguments. But spreading those arguments, whatever they may be, into numbers like this, add ... numbers, will say take any number of arguments I get and throw them into an array. And then numbers will be an array of any, meaning anything, because this is JavaScript and there's no type safety. And so that will be an array, just like before when we had this wrapped in an array and we had no ... The other thing that we can do with the spread is, like I said, spread can also, weirdly enough, be used to take the array brackets off. So you could also think about that's what this is doing here. So it's saying numbers will be an array. Take the brackets off, and that will be the arguments for this function. So it kind of makes sense. Now if you wanted to take this array and then pass it into something that expects a number of items but doesn't expect an array, like let's say you do const list is numbers, what's going to happen? Well, numbers is already an array, so this is going to be an array of an array. We do console.log list, we have two sets of array brackets, which is not the intention. We really just want this list to have all those elements in it. So if we were to, for example, this is a common way if you want to just prepend or append an item to a list, you could say like you want to put 3 at the front, then put the numbers, and then you want to put 9 at the end. But you're going to have this middle part is just going to be an array as well. So you would much rather to spread those numbers, meaning you knock off those array brackets, and then you get a flat array that contains 3, then all the contents of numbers, and then 9. And so that's a really nice convenience feature of the spread, is it just says drop these array brackets and then give me all this stuff. And once again, that's going to work as well for objects too. So if you can't, obviously you're expecting a list of arguments, so the object doesn't make sense here. But let's say you had a couple of objects, like const O1 is going to have A1, and then O2, what did we do wrong here? O equals. And then you're going to have O2 is going to be B2. Now obviously if you had an object like const C is this, you could use some other function like object.assign and then console.log C, and if you scroll down here you'll see that you get it object assign will assign the properties of O1 and O2 to C, or you could do this in separate lines like assign O1 and then assign O2 to C. Another thing that you can do here is use spread. So you could say spread into this object C all the key value pairs of O1 just as they appear, and then spread all the properties of O2. So what you might wonder now is what happens if there's a conflict in the keys, because in arrays it's very explicit that this came before this, so the order is this then this. But since the keys are not ordered here, you might wonder what happens. So let's say we have the X property is going to be, let's say it's just O1 here, and then the X property here is going to be O2. What you notice is that there's only one X property in C, and it's O2. And so the reason for that is because this one came first in the order of assignment. So if I switch the order of assignment, I'm spreading O2 before I'm spreading O1, then I'm setting the O1 as the most recent update. And the same would apply if you were to say something like here explicitly to say X is now C instead. It will override any of the previous assignments for the X property. Whereas if you were to put XC first, then it would override with O2's change and then with O1's change. And so the order of those would matter as to which key gets to keep control. Another little comment here about object assignment is that you'll typically give objects keys like this, but what if you want your key to, this doesn't have to do with spread, but let's say you want your key, const key is going to be key, or to make it different we want to make it like key unique, like let's say it's a key random. Then if you want to give that object a value from that variable, it's not you don't want the key to be called key, you want it to be called key random. Like for example, if you did global this dot crypto dot get random, get random uint32, then it's going to get this random number every time, and you want that random number to be the key, or like you want it to be like this, and then a $sign, and we'll wrap that so it's like a formatted string, and it's going to say ID dash then that number, and that's the key for the within that object. You'll see that you can actually do that, whereas if you just simply said key, you're going to find that it uses the word key, which is not your intention. You want to actually use the value of the key variable as the key. So that's where you need that bracket syntax as well. So in review, we've talked about the different uses of the spread operator, from removing array brackets or removing object brackets to actually taking multiple arguments in as an array variable into a function, and how you can use spread to get the rest of the values in an object or an array. How you can use the key, whether it's position or whether it's a named key in an object, to pull out certain things as variables, and how that's a lot more convenient, and it's a nice shorthand syntax. And finally, how you can use a dynamic key in an object as well. So hopefully this saves you time and makes your code a lot cleaner, even if it may be a bit less readable for someone who doesn't understand the spread syntax. I hope that this will make your code much nicer and much easier to work with as you start to understand how these things work. So thank you for watching, and that's it for this one.